I te e tau tini helawai amanu he upena tuu I kanoe ka pōpo e tahi aua ho o punia ela I ta ohu ka ki kepa kena ila iluna o ta auana I tauahi noe ke kāpeko hei ai kai amanu o pu o ali. O ke ali I wale no ka umake make o taluhi o maua mai nei o ka mākou lea lea no I hea waike ai ala. Ka welina o ke aloha me o kou pakahi, o te tūlai ma le whaaloalo, ma o te tautala ma le whaetete, o te whaatulou atu ai lo o tau paia, tūlou na lava. Our very dear friend, Pacific Islander, scholar, thinker, leader, E Peli Hau'ofa, was inspired to write Our Sea of Islands while on an excursion in Hawaii. Although we take credit as Hawaiians for the immediate spark that led to what has become a cornerstone of Pacific thought in poetic prose, what informed his view was an entire lifetime of living and breathing and knowing what it means to be from the ocean, from Oceania, from Pacifica. We are one saltwater people, born into a genealogy ordained by the ancestors, painted in the stars, carved into the sea. In our DNA is the lifeblood of a people born unto the ocean, voyagers of time and of space. In June of 2024, on behalf of the United States, Hawaii will host the 13th Festival of Pacific Arts and Culture, inaugurated in 1972 in Fiji and produced every 4 years, save 2020, during which the pandemic precipitated the festival's postponement. FestPac, as it is now affectionately called, has convened delegates from some 28 Pacific Island nations into what has become the largest gathering and engagement of indigenous peoples in the entire world. Our responsibility is heavy because we are accountable not just for the procurement and preparation of venues and event design and management. We are also, and more importantly, responsible for hosting some 3,500 Pacific delegates, traditional leaders, heads of state and entourage, and hosting these important guests in a very Pacific way, Kalofai. As Executive Director of the 13th FestPac, it is my great honor to introduce you all to 2 Pacific Islander performers here today to share song and dance of their respective homelands, representatives of their Oceania. Ihelau Mise'ach is from Palau in Micronesia. She performs in the traditional dance style of her homeland, of first appreciation and responsibility, and then of gratitude to the land, the sea, and the sky. She closes with a traditional women's chant, Ihelau Mise'ach.
Oh, the swakle. Oh, the swakle laang. Ema the malasoya. Alarul bakaledeng makngit. The tal bakale ungil nakadako siyang. Way. Molay lewakliang Iray the may giluto Yulda ubebes kaga Dise seloria Bulwaga bulang Mardira Didang lul malul Talmangat mon sa ubersak Del mangat man sauber sagara di sesel oriyang. Wandir gangi the swakle, wow, alerong oh hui.
Excuse me. Don't we come from the most incredible people on the planet? Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, Pacific Islanders. Sorry, I'm so preachy today. But can you just give ourselves a round of applause? John Taukeve sings a song of his native Rotuma, a group of islands off the coast of Fiji. I go to the sea, he sings. I find peace and feel it coursing through my veins, embracing my hanua, my homeland. Ladies and gentlemen, John Taukeve.
As the sun gets smaller beyond the horizon, sinking slowly to the ocean, birds fly back to where they belong as we sail through to the motherland. Kafauhi sa takwa mango eso okya ot mota volukafa malang raksa mango hoha. Yoni kopu asengo maro itokia salva stonte islas. If I knew I would have stayed back in Nandi. As the waves come rushing in and the crews are running up and down, well I know this would stop. So I covered her up, kissed her goodnight, stood up to see. I can hear women chanting, well I know this would be the only way we get to the islands. Here, 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 here. I can only hear here, 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 here. Overnight and through the storm, and finally the rain has stopped. I can see rainbows as clouds cleared out. The morning mist comes splashing through my face. I can feel the ocean vibe through my veins. Kafauhi sa takwa mango eso okya ot mota volukafa malang raksa mango hoha. Yoni kopu asengo maro itokia salva stonte islas. If I knew I would have stayed back in Nandi. As the waves come rushing cashing in, and the crews are running up and down. Well, I know this would stop, so I covered her up, kissed her goodnight, stood up to see. I can hear women chanting. Well, I know this would be the only way we get to the islands. Yeah, 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 yeah. I can only hear, yeah, 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 yeah. I can only hear, yeah, 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 yeah. Kafau hisa takwa mango eso okya ot mota volu kafa maleng raksa mango hoha. Kayani kapua singo maro itokya salvastonte islas. If I knew I could have stayed back in Nandi.
John Taukeve.
Osma purot, osma telefon ngas tu atau kau itaang, hanua molu, usia teletuk sefok lemur kalong ya, more.
Minaka. Baik saya. Both John and Igelau sing simultaneously of longing and of immense pride. Pride in and longing for their people and their homelands. In the United States, we often forget the important role that cultural practice and artistic expression play in informing worldview and how the circular and cyclical nature of our worldviews and cultural and artistic expressions further inform how we actually live in and with the world in which we all live together. In many ways, the Festival of Pacific Arts and Culture represents the manifestation of President Biden's Pacific Partnership Strategy and provides an opportunity to the United States to rekindle relationships with the Pacific and with Pacific Islanders to establish and reinvigorate the most important kind of power in our region, soft power. Power that is firstly founded and then grounded in listening, in contemplation, in empathy. Thank you all for being here, for your energy, for allowing us to be here with all of you. Please allow me to offer my greatest appreciation and gratitude to Crystal Ka'ai, to Erica Moritsugu, to Georgette Furukawa, Rebecca and Phil, and the production team of this incredible forum for providing this time and space for us to share. A very important thank you to Eric Chang, coordinator of the arts program at East West Center and the Pacific Island Development Program, for providing support to bring JJ and Ihilau here today. We look forward to welcoming all of you, to seeing all of you in Hawaii in June 2024 for the 13th Festival of Pacific Arts and Culture. Faftai, mahalo nui, aloha.
Everybody give a big mahalo to Aaron Sala and his whole team up here. Aaron, don't go very far. I want to find out how to make a spam musubi. Is there any way to actually make the seaweed crispy around the musubi, or does it just have to blend together? There's no way to keep it crispy, huh? I'm going to TikTok it. Anyway, I also want to give props to Miss Liz and Alex here, who have been our ASL interpreters. You guys, when she was doing the drums too, I was like, oh, we're getting into all the details. Okay, wait, is there a sign for my name at all? Like, is there one for Jeannie? Okay, I can spell with you, Jeannie. Hey! Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, ladies. They said that they swap. I was talking to Alex backstage. She was like, they swap because they just need to give their mental a break for a second because it takes so much to compute and process what they're doing now. And I was like, I need y'all in my life because sometimes people schedule Zoom meetings for things that I think should be in an email. I can't. Like, I'm like, let me get the interpreter to like come and do this work for me. But thank you, ladies, for everything that you do. Yes. So ladies and gentlemen, I am so honored to introduce a woman who has an incredible gift of taking us into the tapestry of human experiences. This babe right here, she's an award-winning host and executive producer of the captivating This Is Life with Lisa Ling. I know, right? She is my absolute woman crush every day, my shiro. She is the link that connects us all. You like that? Give it up for our woman, Lisa Ling.
Oh, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I thought you were excited cheering for me, but I realized Eric Nam was right behind me. How you doing? How we feeling? A little tired? Yeah, a little bit. Okay, well, listen, I know it's been a long day. We've heard from a lot of voices, but I'm so excited because this panel is about power and harnessing that power and really finding our voice. So I'm so excited to introduce this esteemed panel, a man who needs no introduction, obviously, Eric Nam, who is a singer-songwriter, as you all know, TV personality, actor, and entrepreneur, and the creative director of a media company called Dive Studios. Give it up for Eric Nam. And after serving as an educator, Estella Owima Church is currently the executive director at EPIC, Empowering Pacific Islander Communities. Give it up for Estella. And my friend John Yang, he's the executive director of Asian Americans Advancing Justice, AAAJ, where he works to fight for civil rights and empowers Asian Americans through public policy, advocacy, education, and litigation. John Yang, everyone. And Versha Sharma, and I'm so excited that she's here today because she has a 3-month-old baby who is actually here, who felt that this was so important that she had to come along with her baby in tow. She is an award-winning journalist who is currently the editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue, where she focuses on covering social justice, culture, fashion, and politics. Thank you so much, Versha, for being here. So I'd like to just go down the line, if I could, and ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how and when, or when and how, you found your AA or NHPI voice. Eric, I'll start with you.
Big question. My name is Eric Nam. I am a singer, songwriter, actor, and entrepreneur. And I think when it comes to my AA NHPI voice, I think I'm still developing. I think we're all kind of developing it. For a long time, we were told that we don't have space in the spaces that we exist. And so I think in recent years, we're seeing ourselves represented in media in so many incredible places, and we're just now starting to get our footing and getting comfortable with expressing ourselves to our fullest ability. So for me, I think it comes in the form of creating music and art, but also it comes with creating businesses, media business, but also a mental health platform that I created with my brothers. So I think that's where I've been finding my voice, not only on the creative side, but figuring out what is the social impact that we want to create as AA and NHPI creators. So that is what I do.
Love that, Eric. Estella, when did you find your NHPI voice?
Yeah, big question, right?
Big question.
Tala falava alo uinga Stella Owima Church for having me. So former educator, was in the classroom for 10 years, and I now get to serve, shout out to teachers. I now get to serve community with an amazing team at EPIC. We are a pro-Black, pro-Indigenous national organization based in Los Angeles, and we are working to advance social justice on behalf of Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander communities through research, advocacy, leadership development, and narrative change. My voice, I think, I would agree. It's definitely still in development, but I think as an undergrad, a Black Studies major, I am Black Pacifica with roots in Satufia, Sabai Samoa, and in Calabar, Nigeria. I was born and raised by Tovangar in Los Angeles, and I'm a very proud Angelino, and working to be a better relative for Tongva Nation. And I think the voice came as a Black Studies student, undergrad at Cal State Northridge, when I read Audre Lorde's first line in her speech where she says, "I am Black mother, warrior, poet, and I have come to do my work asking if you have done the same." And I was like, oh. I got some work to do, but also it was the first time it had dawned on me that I absolutely have all of the right and authority to be everything that I am all the time, holistically, unapologetically. I am Black, I am Pacifica, and every space I come into, all of those ancestors are with me. And so they're here with me today, and I am grateful for them.
John?
Sure. So for me, for my organization, our organization advocates, we educate, and we empower people. So what I mean by advocate is we are here in the capital city trying to advocate for policies with the administration and Congress for the betterment of Asian Americans. It includes litigation, things such as keeping the citizenship question off of our census in 2020. When I talk about sort of educating, it's making sure that media narratives about our community are right. So pushing back against things like the China virus or chain migration, terms that are offensive to our community. And then when I talk about empower, is working with all of our community partners that do this serious work on the ground to make sure that our communities are served. In terms of my voice, I actually don't go back to what Senator Hirono says about, it's not about finding my voice, but how we use our voice. And how we use our voice comes from all of us, right? All of our own lived experiences. So for me, that is a lived experience as a Midwestern boy on the outskirts of Chicago when there's so few Asian Americans that I was called chink, that I literally got into fights for being Asian American. I'm not proud of it, but I am proud of it, right? It is but the fact that I am an undocumented immigrant, a so-called illegal alien, and I found my path to citizenship through bipartisan legislation signed in 1986. It is as an advocate now, recognizing that I have the privilege of being here in DC to advocate for all of us to create change that all of us can really benefit from, to feel protected, to feel more secure, to feel more included in our society.
Thank you, John. Varsha, tell us a little bit about yourself and when did you find your AA voice?
So I am a proud Indian American from central Louisiana. That's where I grew up. And I think, yes, I don't know if that's for Indian Americans or Louisiana, whatever it is. I like both. But I think growing up as a brown girl in the Deep South and the Bible Belt 100% shaped my voice and my life and worldview. And I think there were a couple factors there. Certainly I felt othered in a lot of ways. And I'm also very grateful to my parents who found a community with other Indian immigrants and South Asian immigrants and raised their children in this community as well. So I had a little bit of both. And I think that, being editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue now, I think a lot about that little girl growing up in central Louisiana and never seeing somebody who looked like me on the cover of a magazine. I'm now almost 2 years into the job, and I'm very proud to say I put 4 South Asians on the cover of the magazine, and it's great, and lots of Asian Americans as well. Also not seeing anybody like myself in a job like this. Like, Lisa, you were the Asian American journalist that I watched on Channel 1 News growing up. And now we have a lot more, thankfully, but Lisa was absolutely a trailblazer. And so I think all of that, yes, props for Lisa. I think the very few role models like yourself that I saw in media helped me find my voice, and I'm still working on it. I absolutely agree with what Senator Hirono said as well, which is it's about finding your voice, but it's also about learning how to use it, because we're all born with it, right? We're born with our voices, and it's just demanding that people listen to us now.
Varsha, I'm deeply humbled and flattered to hear you say that, but I think even for me, even though I've worked in television for so long, when you ask me that question, when did you find your AA voice? That is also a difficult question for me, because when you grow up and you don't see people who look like you or your stories reflected in the media or in history books or in politics, it's hard to be definitive about what that voice is. So I appreciate you taking on that big question. Eric, you have a massive following across so many platforms. but you have decided to really take on this issue of mental health across all of your platforms. I wonder where you see that need among your fans and your audience, and what kinds of things are resonating with your fans when it comes to mental health.
Yeah, thank you for the question. My brothers and I, we started a company called Dive Studios, and it started really fun, podcasts, K-pop content. What we found is so many people wanted to hear the stories that were most relatable, and that is the human experience. Conversations around depression. Is that me? Sorry, guys. I don't know what's happening.
Talking about depression, anxiety, everyone's getting
know,
all
they're
tense
trying
and
Gosh.
getting feedback.
Yeah, but we created this platform called Mindset, and the purpose and the mission behind it is to really normalize conversations around mental health through storytelling. It is a platform, it is a community. We have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people on our platform, and the reason that it's become such a big part of who I am and what I do is that particularly in Asian AAPI and NHPI communities, it goes just really not spoken about. We also know that for AAPI communities, thank you. For AAPI communities.
That doesn't work.
Hello. There we go. For AAPI communities, oftentimes we're the least to seek mental health care, and when we do, it is at a time of crisis. It is an emergency time, and we want to get people to a place where it is preventative. Mental health is something we should take care of every single day. And so I think it's not just my fans, it's a human issue that we feel very strongly about, that I feel very strongly about. And it's kind of embedded not only into the work that I do, but also the music, the TV shows, everything that I talk about. And I think as a creator, it's so empowering and it's very powerful when people listen to my songs or whatever I do and say, this spoke to me and it saved my life. I've had people break down in tears at concerts just sharing that story with me. And so for my brothers and I, it's really about how do we continue to make this as accessible as possible? How do we really tell these stories from the biggest K-pop stars to the biggest Western stars and athletes and actors so that everybody feels and can hear and see themselves in this conversation that we're having with mental health. And so that's kind of been the focus that I've taken on in the past few years, using my Asian American voice, I guess.
Well, yes. I so applaud you for that, Eric, because I think we recognize that there are so many young people in crisis right now, and taking the initiative to be open and candid about how important it is to learn how to feel or be given permission to be able to feel is so vital. So thank you for that. Versha, you also have a very big teen following. And so I wonder if you can talk about the things that you have seen or the struggles that young people who follow your magazine or who are readers of your magazine are experiencing, and what are ways that we can empower this generation?
I think having this conversation right now is fantastic. Listening, Eric, to you talk about what you're doing and focusing on is 100% where we start. I think making people feel like they're not alone is number one. And like Eric said, Asian American youth are statistically less likely to seek treatment. I myself go to therapy every week, or try to keep up with it every week. I'm a huge fan of it. I think everybody should go to therapy if they can. I have, dealt with anxiety and depression pretty much my whole life. And I think, being able to be on this stage and just talk about that and talk about it with other people in the audience, backstage, normalizing it and realizing how important it is that we just give voice to our feelings, just like you said, is incredibly important. And so particularly with the pandemic, we've seen some really disheartening statistics about how young AA and NHPI youth are feeling. First of all, young people are feeling more isolated since the pandemic began because, school shutdowns, just the era that we're living in now, it's completely understandable. But then also the rising hate crimes and hate that we've seen against Asian Americans as well has really caused a huge issue amongst our community in general. And so I think reaching out to people, letting them know they're not alone, letting them know there are resources, places to seek help. There are fantastic free resources online, groups that you can go to. And I think just the more that we have this conversation, the better.
Did you, Versha, did you feel apprehensive about being open about dealing with depression throughout your life? And how did the people who follow you, how did they respond to that?
Everybody, well, I won't say everybody, I'll say a lot of people have responded very well, which I'm very grateful for. I've talked about it for a good portion of my career now that I think I feel, I mean, even talking about it right now, I'm a little uncomfortable, I'll be honest. But people have been so appreciative of bringing it up and being honest about it. And I'm grateful to my own bosses and mentors in my past life. Before Teen Vogue, I worked at Now This for 7 years, another newsroom run for young people, by young people, incredibly diverse, just a wonderful place. And my boss there went to therapy, and she was open about it, and that encouraged me to then be open about it. And so it's just sort of that cascading effect, and if I can help one person talk a little bit more about it, then I'm very happy.
We really need to normalize that conversation about therapy. John and Estella, I want to ask you both, you know, the COVID pandemic really exposed so much ugliness and so much racism that has just been simmering beneath the surface. What would you say the lessons have been, right? What have we learned from that period? Where are we now, and how do you see conversations and how do you see action around this topic moving forward? Estella, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think I mean, you alluded to it. These were definitely issues that already persisted, and the pandemic just sort of magnified them. It continues to be painfully obvious that we, as a collective, are still struggling to dismantle systems and structures of racism and white supremacy that are absolutely embedded in all of our systems and structures across this country. It also becomes very obvious that all of us, in many ways, have been complicit in each of those systems and structures, and that we are internally, individually, struggling to do what Audre Lorde says, is to do our work. And part of that work is also our personal identity voyages to figure out who we are, who we're supposed to be, what our kuleana is, like what is the responsibility, the higher call, the purpose that you were put here to do, that your ancestors are behind you rooting for you to do, to accomplish. And I know that it's difficult to do that deep, reflective, sometimes very painful, traumatic work, but it's absolutely necessary if as a collective we're going to dismantle and disrupt those deeply rooted systemic structures and barriers that continue to hamper our communities from accessing the resources that they need and thriving. And just thinking about voice, just sitting here listening to folks, I'm like, I actually have never had the privilege of not being an advocate. It's not my existence in this country. It's just not my truth. And I've always had to be as a little girl, and I watch my 9-year-old, she also has to be an advocate because the world sees a little Black girl. The world sees a little PI girl, and that's all she is. And so that's all she is to other folks. She's the universe to me. It just continues to be obvious that we have a lot of internal work to do individually and as a collective. And then I also think about the term BIPOC that has become a buzzword, and just in thinking about the intent of that term, right? We to do better, we want to center the most marginalized in our communities. And so for BIPOC, we put Black Indigenous first, right? And so I just offer, as Native Hawaiians, Pacific Islanders, and particularly Melanesian folks in our communities continue to struggle for visibility, visible together, right? That we reconsider the way that we use these terms because they've become weapons against many of our communities that are struggling to be seen even today, right now. in this space, right?
Estella, if you don't mind if I pick up on that, you know, in this country right now, we are in the midst of a really ugly culture war. And as a former educator, I mean, I'm sure you were always a teacher, but you're not actively in the classroom anymore. What words of advice would you give to those in education who are on the receiving end of this literal attempt to close the book on diverse histories?
My advice isn't to educators, because we're in the trenches. My advice is to community, is to parents, is to CBOs, is to lawmakers, is to school board members, is to talk to your kids and talk to your educators. Teachers are very adept at getting out of young people's way and letting them lead the way they are supposed to and meant to, the way they want to. And all of the rhetoric around the country that is hampering kids' access to quality, equitable, culturally responsive education is all outside of the classrooms. It's not coming from teachers inside the classrooms. It's not coming from the kids. It's not coming from our communities. It's coming from folks who are very out of touch with our children and with our parents and with our schools. And so the call is to everyone else. Show up for your teachers, show up for the kids in the classroom, and listen. Stop talking. Listen to them and take heed to what they have to say.
Yeah, I mean, it occurs to me that so many of the things that we've been hearing today, there is a contingent of Americans who would literally not, want to prevent their kids from hearing what we've been hearing today. So it's incumbent upon all of us to expose our kids and to keep fighting for exposure and for knowledge, really. John, going back to the question about the racism that COVID exposed, where would you say we are right now? What have we learned? And also talk about, how sort of fragile things are. I mean, here we are celebrating this month and these incredible achievements, but in an instant, during periods of instability, things can turn and an entire community can become scapegoated again. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely, and thanks for the question. Let me start by telling all of us, let's remember, democracy is not a spectator sport. It is a sport that we all must participate in. And so part of what I really appreciate about this panel is all of us come from different backgrounds, but the common link is that we're all trying to tell the story of who we are as Asian Americans. And that's a story that all of you, after these panels, after today, should bring out to your communities to make sure that we all know who we are as Asian Americans. Because Lisa, you're absolutely right. This is very fragile. Certainly in the last 3 years, you can say that some of this anti-Asian hate started because of COVID-19 and that the words that were used around COVID-19 targeted all of our communities. But it's not going to end here. I mean, we have real geopolitical differences with the Chinese government right now. And you see that in the news every single day. And so we need to make sure that when we talk about these issues, we remain nuanced all of this. So certainly words matter, and then these actions matter in terms of what we do with all of this. I really appreciate what Estella is saying about education. All of our communities have been marginalized communities, have been vulnerable communities. And so what we say to educators, what we say to those people that are trying to push back against telling our histories is, look, these histories are our lived experiences. The least that they can do is learn about our experiences.
Thank you, John. In closing, I just want to ask everyone to answer a question. I mean, I know that there are a lot of youth leaders in the audience and people who still might be struggling to find their AA and NHPI voice. What advice would you give them to be able to sort of harness that voice? First, I'll start with you down there.
Well, first I would say tune out the noise, because there is a lot of noise in terms of pressures from different people, whether it's coming from your peers or sometimes even your family, to live your life a certain way. And I say that because, like the panel before us with creatives, my own family, my own parents were not convinced that I could have a successful, stable career as a journalist, right? It wasn't until I basically got this job that they were like, maybe easing back on going to law school. So understand that pressures come from everywhere, including your own family, and it's just really important to find your own passions and give voice to what those are and stay true to yourself in that regard. And also know that that might change, and also know that it's going to take some time. So.
Okay, I lied. I can't have everyone give their advice on finding your voice because we have to wrap. But thank you so much for being part of this. Estella, John, Bersha, and Eric Nam. I want to direct you to a video. Eric got a chance to talk to our Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, about mental health, and we're going to show you that video now. Thank you all so much.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I can't be there for the White House Forum on Asian Americans and Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders. In recognition of this gathering, Eric Nam and I had a fantastic conversation about his life story, and especially as it relates to mental health. Here are some highlights from our chat. You can listen to the full conversations on my podcast, House Calls with Dr. Vivek Murthy. Take care and enjoy this time together. Well, Eric, let's get into your music. You've talked about music as a way to heal. And I'm curious, how does that belief in healing, show up in your music or in your songwriting process?
What I have found is the more honest and vulnerable I am in expressing and explaining what I'm going through, oftentimes the better the song. That's why every piece of music that I write, I have a very distinct memory about that song. It's a page out of my diary, essentially.
And it seems like a key part of your process is to be vulnerable. How did you learn how to be vulnerable?
When you contain and you hold on to these moments of stress or anxiety or whatever it is that you're going through, it's not good for your health, mental and physical. And I had to learn all that the hard way. I think when I started to realize that, just having close guarded conversations with intimate friends, then I was like, oh, this isn't a big deal to share that I'm going through a very hard time. And people are gonna help me, and it's not gonna be a point of judgment. And a lot of people, I think, appreciate that. They appreciate when you're vulnerable with them.
Well, what do you love most about being Korean American?
Ooh. I love every side of myself, of the Korean Americanness. And I say that because I think when we were growing up, I don't know how you felt, but I always felt othered. I never felt like I ever fit in. But what I'm realizing now is that experience of feeling othered, of being third cultured, there are so many of us who feel that way and are connected in that way. And also understanding that being third cultured is a superpower because we understand multiple cultures and maybe even multiple languages all at once. We can sit at the intersection of a incredibly globalized world. And also, Korean food, music, skincare, TV, film, killing it. So.
Now, most important question. If you and I started a boy band together, what would we call it?
Really valid names.
Should it be oriented around food?
It could. It could be about Korean, Indian, Chinese fusion.
You know what dosas are?
I
dosas
love
in
dosas.
India? Oh, they're so good. I love dosas too, and I actually like eating dosas with gochujang sauce, right? Because it's such a great combination that just people don't do often enough. But there could be something with different dishes or sauces that we.
What if it's dosajang?
Dosajang.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's actually a pretty cool name.
I love it. We've got our boy band name. Eric,
right.
This is it.
Vivek, I'm telling you, Coachella 2025, it's happening.
there we go.
We're going to make a docuseries behind it as well.
I love it.